This is the Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, volume number 5, published by Dar al-Turath al-Arabi in Beirut, Lebanon, published in the year 1415. And let's go here, page number 61. And these are the ahadith of a very deplorable character in the history of Islam, a very bloodthirsty and a very heinous criminal, Muawiyah. The ahadith of Muawiyah, obviously Muawiyah in history, any person who judges him fairly and honestly, he will find him a very deplorable person, a person who did not know anything but lust and money. And in order to reach his desires, he didn't hesitate to kill, murder. And he is one of the first people in the history of Islam who murdered tribes after tribes, slaughtered them in order to create disability, create instability in the rule of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam. And inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala, our disrespect for Muawiyah is not for personal reasons. It's because who he was, and because what scholars have, because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what he has said about Muawiyah, that he will not die on my religion. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has damned and proclaimed la'na on Muawiyah. At any rate, that's not our topic. Even if someone says Muawiyah, he doesn't agree with us that Muawiyah was a bad person. That's not our concern right now. So, and this book of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, page 61, hadith number 16,434, حدثنا Abdullah, حدثني Abi. Abdullah, the son of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, says that his father, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, said. And because Abdullah is the narrator of the book, Abdullah ibn Ahmad is the narrator, he narrates the whole book. So every hadith, it will be Abdullah said, my father said, because he is the narrator of the entire book. Why is that so? That's another story for another time. حدثنا أبي, حدثني أبي, my father narrated to me. حدثنا أسود ibn Amir. Aswad ibn Amir. Who is this person? Aswad ibn Amir, his name is Shadhan. He is from Syria, from Sham, and he is a person whose ahadith are present in Bukhari, Muslim, and the other 4 books. What are the other 4 books? Sunan al-Nisa'i, Sunan al-Tirmidhi, Sunan ibn Majah, and Sunan Abi Dawud. So whenever I say 4 books, please remember that these are the 4 important books. These are the 6 important books of hadith, Bukhari, Muslim, and the 4 books that I mentioned. And any person whose hadith are present in Bukhari and Muslim, because Bukhari and Muslim, according to the Umari scholars, all of their hadith are sahih. Therefore, the inclusion of any person in the chains of narration of Bukhari and Muslim testifies to his adala, to his being trustworthy and of being of upright character. Even if there is no testimony, even if there is no other evidence with regard to his character, his truthfulness, his health and memory being sound, and his reliability being unquestionable, just the fact that Bukhari has relied on him and narrated from him, even with indirectly from him, because he may occur in the chain of narration and in the higher generations than Bukhari. All these men who are present in the chains of narration of Bukhari and Muslim, they are all men of upright character and men of reliable nature with regard to narration of hadith. So when I mentioned why it's important that I mentioned that he is a man whose narration are present, whose traditions are present, either in Bukhari or Muslim or both, because of this principle. Because it makes it so easy. Then I don't have to open books and show you, oh, so-and-so has said that this person is reliable. Because he is one of the narrators in Bukhari and Muslim. And that is a shortcut. That makes it easier for us and makes the presentation of any argument rather easy. And this, what I mentioned to you, is not something that I made up. And there is no benefit for me that I make up things and present to you. Because my words, my statements, my positions, and my arguments are carefully analyzed by the opposing congregation. And if I say something that is not true, they will not hesitate to make a clip out of it and make fun of me and poke fun at me. Let's go back to the book of Ahmad. Narrates to us Aswad ibn Amir. أنبأنا أبو بكر عن عاصم. Abu Bakr, who is this Abu Bakr? Abu Bakr ibn Ayyash al-Asadi. He's one of the men on whose account Bukhari has narrated, and the other four guys, the other four books, and also Muslim, and the Muqaddimah, and the prologue of his book. And Asim, who is this Asim, this character? This is Asim ibn Bahdala. Bahdala's Asim, the son of Bahdala. Bahdala, his other name is Ibn Abi Najud. And he is from the tribe of Bani Asad. Bani Asad is a very famous tribe that mostly lives in Iraq. And he was from Kufa. And Asim ibn Bahdala al-Asadi, his hadith are present in Bukhari and in Muslim and in the four books. Bukhari, Muslim, and the other four books. There's one matter that you have to remember, or you don't have to remember, but some of you for whom it's important to understand various intricacies of the principles of hadith according to Umari scholars. And all these principles that I mentioned to you, none of them is from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. These principles of hadith none of them are from Quran. These principles of hadith are made up rules that they made up, the Umaris made up. They made up these rules, and many of these rules are made up out of bias, out of close-mindedness, and out of lust in order to prove a certain hadith right and a certain hadith wrong. And that is very important, that these principles have not been established in order to distinguish truth from falsehood. No. The entire science of hadith of the Umari congregation is based upon ta'assub, upon bias, in order to make certain hadith sahih at any price, and make certain hadith da'if and unreliable and untrue at any price. And that is history. That is the history of Islam, a very dark history. Asim ibn Bahdala, the four other narrators have narrated from him. However, Bukhari and Muslim have narrated his hadith conjoined by another narrator. Therefore, although he's a man of Bukhari and Muslim, nonetheless, he's not one of those narrators that is just on the account of his narration in Bukhari and Muslim, his character and his reliability could be ascertained. Asim ibn Bahdala. It's important to note that Asim ibn Bahdala, this man, is the same person who has narrated the qira'ah of Quran. As you understand, there are many qira'ah of Quran, many different recitations of Quran. When we say recitations of Quran, it doesn't indicate the art of recitation, that the vocalization of Quran. That's something else. The Quran, that was compiled by Uthman and sent to various localities, various towns and governorates at that time, at the time of Uthman. Later, in the wordings of these Quran, there were differences. There were disputes. But they are not very major differences. Nonetheless, there are differences, and sometimes they make a difference, like in the verse of wudu. So these disputes are on the account of the various qurra, various ways of that the Quran of Uthman has been narrated. And this is not vocalization. This, when we say qira'ah of Quran here, it doesn't mean the vocalization. It means that the wordings are read differently, so much so that many a time their meanings differ. Their meanings become different. But they are not very major differences. Nonetheless, there are differences. And there are 14, or 7 at least, very famous qira'ah. One of those versions of the Quran, Uthman, which is very popular, which is everywhere, which almost all Islamic countries, except some African countries, they recite Quran by that version. This is the version that's been narrated by Hafs from Asim. Hafs ibn Sulaiman, a man from Kufa, narrated this version from Asim, this man that we are talking about. Asim ibn Bahdala narrated from him. And he narrated from Zir ibn Hubaysh, and he narrated from Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So this person is the narrator, the same narrator, and he's one narrator. This tilawa has been narrated. This is the version that's going to be narrated from him. It's not mutawatir. Of course, not mutawatir. It's one person from one person, and that is the same person. What happened to the Quran before Uthman, from the time of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his demise, and until Uthman burned the other versions of Quran, and that's this in Bukhari. There are many versions of Quran that Uthman burnt, destroyed them, and he kept only one. He kept only one, and that Quran is now prevalent in the Islamic countries, and that in that Quran is also there's dispute. There are differences in wordings that's subject to dispute, and the most famous of those versions and most prevalent of those versions has been narrated by Asim, the same Asim that we are talking about here in this narration. Asim narrates from Abu Saleh. Abu Saleh is this person. Abu Saleh is a man from Medina, and his name is Dhakwan ibn Abdullah as-Samman. And his father, Dhakwan ibn Abdullah, his father was a slave to one of the wives of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Jahiliyyah. He was a slave and a servant to her. And this person narrates from Muawiyah. And Muawiyah is, of course, Sahaba. And this also, Abu Saleh Dhakwan, he is also a man whose narrations are present in Bukhari and Muslim and the 4 other books, and also very reliable. And he narrates from Muawiyah. And of course, Muawiyah, according to the Umari congregation, he is their Amir, the Amir al-Fasiqeen. And he is a Sahabi, and all Sahaba, all of them have upright characters. And all of them are reliable, and they never lie, of course. So, Muawiyah narrated from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Man mata bighayri imamin mata mitatan jahiliyyah. Any person who dies, man mata, any person who dies, anyone who dies, bighayri imamin, without an imam. Mata, he dies, mitatan jahiliyyah, a specific death. Mita, a specific way of dying. A specific way of dying. Mita. Which specific way of dying? Which specific way of dying? Jahiliyyah, pagan. Pagan. That's I would translate. If I were to translate Jahiliyyah into English, pagan. But some other person may try to translate it another way. But Jahiliyyah itself, most Muslims know what Jahiliyyah means. Jahiliyyah is as opposed to Islam. Not oppose Islam and Christianity, Islam and Judaism. No. Jahiliyyah is another era, a period in Arabia when most Arabs were atheists or idol worshippers, and they committed very, very deplorable sins, such as fornication with their very close relatives and killing innocent people at that time. So such a person dies the Jahili death, a person who dies without an imam. And so that is the importance of imam. That is the importance of imam, and that is the very, very central position of an imam. Central position, key position of an imam. If you know him, then he's a shart. What's a shart? A stipulation. A person may know Tawheed. A person may know the Risalah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He may establish all his daily prayers. Nonetheless, he doesn't know the imam. He dies Jahili death. He dies Jahili death. So he is the condition. He is that stipulation, that shart, that without which Tawheed, Nubuwwah, Salah, Zakah, Saum, fasting, all those actions, they have no validity and no value in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If this hadith is sahih. So, if this hadith is sahih, then those consequences would follow. Is this hadith sahih? Let me show you. This hadith has been narrated through many chains of narration and on the authority of many, many Sahaba. But we are talking right now about this specific chain of narration, and this specific chain of narration is sahih, as I mentioned to you, that all of us people in this chain of narration are very reliable and very respected and very well-known narrators of hadith from the books of Bukhari and Muslim and the other books of famous and respected books of hadith. Let's have a look at this book, Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal, his ahadith have been verified and categorized by Sheikh Ahmad al-Zain. Darul Hadith, published by the House of Hadith in Al-Qahira in Cairo, Egypt. Volume number 13, published at the year 1995 in Darul Hadith, page number 188, Hadith number 16,000, as you may see here, right here, 16,819. حدثنا الأسود بن عامر فلان فلان فلان. Let me read the names of areas anyways. حدثنا أبو بكر عن عاصم عن أبي صالح عن معاوية قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله من مات بغير إمام مات ميتة جاهلية. 16,819 إسناده صحيح. This chain of narration is sahih. Sahih. When it says sahih, it means there is no question about its reliability. And this is hujjah. This hadith has the force of the law. This hadith is reliable. This hadith is true. So that is the assertion of this scholar of hadith. And now we go to another research into the book of Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, published by Mu'assis Risala Foundation, volume number 28. People who have verified and categorized the ahadith of this book are Sheikh Shu'aib al-Arnaout and the other individuals mentioned here. Published year 1999, page number 88, hadith number 16,817. Sanad, the same as Sanad, عن معاوية قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله من مات بغير إمام مات ميتة جاهلية. He dies a pagan death. He dies a pagan death. Now here is the footnote number 1. Hadithun sahihun. Hadith is sahih. Now let me explain to you one expression and the parlance of scholars of hadith. Sahihun li nafsih wa sahihun li ghayrih. Sahih on its own merit and sahih on the merit and because of other hadith. What does that mean? That means if a hadith sahihun li nafsih on its own merit, that means we just consider and view this chain of narration itself. A narrated from B, from C, from D. That Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said such and such a thing. So without any other evidence, without even looking to other hadith, other evidence, other circumstantial evidence, contextual evidence that may be present there or may be present in other places. This sanad by itself, on its own merit, is sahih. This is sahih li nafsih, sahih on its own. And then sahih li ghayrih. Sahih li ghayrih is that there might be a problem with this sanad. Sahih li ghayrih means that this sanad, A narrated from B, C from D, sahihun li ghayrih. Sahih on the merit, on the account of other evidence. Okay, sahih. That means A, B, C, D. There might be a problem here. There might be a big problem here. We don't know exactly. However, the hadith is sahih. On its own merit, there might be a problem. There might be a problem on its own merit. Nonetheless, in the view of other ahadith, we have other ahadith that have mentioned the same matter. We have other historical evidence or contextual evidence or evidence from Quran. We have some other proof that strengthens the validity of this hadith, that makes it more reliable, that lends credence to this hadith. So that is called sahihun li ghayrih. Sahihun li ghayrih. Now, because on the account of some other evidence. So let's go to Sheikh Shu'aib al-Arnaout. He says sahihun li ghayrih. This hadith is sahih li ghayrih. But there might be a problem on this sanad. Nonetheless, this hadith is sahih on the account, on the view of other evidence that we got. Now, when a hadith is proved that's sahih, regardless, there's a problem with this chain and you have another piece of information, another piece of evidence that lends credence to the validity of this hadith, regardless of that. If a hadith is sahih, that command that the hadith encompasses, that is statement that is made by the hadith, that is true, and that is hujjah, and that has the force of the law. That's obvious. So even if we do not dispute with Shu'aib Arnaout and his colleagues, our point is made that the central that this hadith is sahih. And then we would also further argue when we come to the dalala, the implications of hadith, the meaning of hadith, what sequiturs follow from this hadith, what corollaries follow from this hadith. When we come to that, then we'll talk about this central position of Imam, that this position, that he is the condition of the validity and acceptance of Tawheed and Iman and Psalm and Salah and prayers and fasting and Zakah and all those actions. Such a position has to be a divinely appointed person. And there are no other divinely appointed Imams in Islam, in all Islamic sects, except when you come to the Shia denomination. Shu'aib al-Arnaout says, وَهَذَا إِسْنَادٌ حَسَنٌ من أجل عاصم وهو ابن بهدلة وبقية رجاله ثقات رجال الشيخين. This hadith, وهذا إسناد حسن. This hadith, isnad is Hasan. What's Hasan means? Hasan is a kind of, there is hadith of Sahih. The Sahih hadith has various categories. One is very reliable, one is less Sahih. So it's still Sahih, but less strength than that hadith, which is a very high in the categories of Sahih hadith. So hadith of Hasan is a kind of Sahih hadith. Inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, we'll talk about this in the future. That's al-hadith al-Hasan is hujjah, according to Umari scholars. It's hujjah. It has the force of law. It has its acceptance and submission to such hadith is obligatory. And hadith of Hasan, as I mentioned, is a sort of, a kind of, and one of the subcategories of Sahih hadith. Inshallah, we'll talk about this more. Because of Asim, which Asim? This hadith, he is saying it's not highly Sahih, at the highest level, rather Hasan, because of Asim. Same Asim who was narrated the version of Quran that we recite commonly in our homes. Because of him. Baqiyatul Rijal, the rest of the men of this hadith are Rijal al-Shaykhain, Rijal of Bukhari and Muslim.